Well, we're going to talk a little bit about some flooding issues, and we've had a series actually over the decades called Fighting Future Floods. And I think it's time that we reinspect that topic because it's still something that happens here generally all too often. And joining me from Marshall University is Dr. Richard Begley and a couple of students of his, Alex Toller and James Dishner. And Dr. Begley, thanks for joining us here from Marshall and the Civil Engineering program. We appreciate you joining us.
It's a pleasure. We appreciate your time very much. I'm very happy to be here with some of our great recent graduates from the beautiful Weisberg Applied Engineering Complex.
So you're working specifically on a grant, and also you work in visualization skills and kind of mapping things. Take people through what's going on in Rainelle. Now, Rainelle is just a little outside of, let's say, the Channel 13 viewing area, but it's right in our Channel 59 viewing area, an area that I'm very familiar with that does tend to flood. So Rainelle, West Virginia, southern West Virginia, but why don't you pick it up from there in terms of what happened and what you've been working on there?
Well, glad to. I actually had the pleasure of working in Greenbrier County on a previous flood in the 1990s. A little town called Marleyton, West Virginia had two 500-year floods in 10 years. And we did a study there with a public-private partnership with the United States Army Corps of Engineers. And then over time, through another partnership with Rainelle, Western Greenbrier Business Development Corporation, we were asked to come in and do some assessments on flood risk. And we did a simulation in 2004. And unfortunately, in 2016, there was a tragic event, and our simulation compared pretty precisely with the actual event in 2016. And we've had a great team of students over the last 15 years helping us in this project. And most recently, our seniors just did a capstone project where they studied it. And one of our students online here actually went to Rainelle and did a field study and actually worked with another team of people to essentially do some designs of a proposed new stormwater management system.
So let's ask, if I could, let me ask Alex and James, you were on the ground there. Tell people what happened we know about the 2016 floods, kind of in general, but what happened in Rainelle, guys, when you got down there and you saw what you saw? Tell everybody what was going on.
One thing that was really prevalent was a lot of water on the surface. It wasn't really flowing anywhere. It wasn't really flowing anywhere it should be flowing. It was a lot of places just pooling in people's yards, collecting.
And so, James, you were there. Did you see it when you got down there, or at the after effects? I probably would expect you got there after the event.
In regards to the 2016 flood, I didn't. Just recently for a project with our school.
I see. So you went back and looked at the data, the evidence. And Alex, what were you doing as a part of this particular capstone project?
I actually had a project for a separate class that Dr. Begley taught, but I made a software, or I implemented data into a HEC-RAS model, which is a flood simulation software, and we kind of recapped exactly what happened in that event in 2016. We took 8 inches of rain and simulated what happened in one daytime.
And that was key too. Back to Dr. Begley, it was 7.6 inches of rain, 36 hours. I don't care whether you're here, if you're in the Arizona desert, if you're on the flattest flat in Iowa, you're probably going to see some flooding. But the fact is we live in Appalachia, and that's just a really, really bad kind of a setup. For Dr. Begley, going back to 2003, it was what I was reading, that you had kind of already seen this and signaled this. How did you jump from that event to then this event, and what is it that you're trying to do with these visualizations that Alex made?
Well, let me try to share my screen. And we looked at, there's one of our grad students there using a foot patrol to collect the data. But we were looking at the elevation of the bridges that the streams traversed, and then we did a simulation. So we compiled all that data, prepared a 3D digital elevation model, and started to do simulations. And what we're going to see here is a series of slides. On the right is the simulation in blue, and we're going to go through this, and the increments will be 1 foot of elevation difference, and you start to see the floodwater start to accumulate, and that's where we stopped the simulation in 04. And again, there's the reminder where the bridge is in reference to the city. You can see it over here.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a static photo from the drone footage. And this corridor here is actually this one right here. And you can see if we would have took our simulation to 2392, we probably would have had a very precise simulation.
Wow.
So that's just another viewpoint of it.
Mm-hmm.
So then we had another student a couple of months later that looked at the watershed issue, and she captured some images from the data on the precipitation. Notice Rainelle is right here, and notice the pink areas. That's the heaviest rain. And she did a 3D model, and this just shows the boundary of the perimeter. And notice this horseshoe shaping thing here. This is the river.
Yeah.
So we have a very congested set of bends in this river, and it's low flowing normally, but the water does rise very quickly in Greenbrier County, as we saw in Marlington. So she overlaid that heavy precipitation, and right there you can see the low areas, and then you just see the heaviest rain just came right down in the wrong place at the wrong time and just inundated the city. So there's where the horseshoe bend is. And it got it from not only the Sewell Creek, but also here's the Meadow River, and they all converge right here.
And the thing about that is, too, that this is Appalachia. You're looking at one example right there. There are so many examples just like that. How many communities are built in the valley? All of them. So this could happen really anywhere. So what is it that you're now using this data, which is fascinating to look at when you look at, just the problems that occurred in this one spot? What is it that you're trying to apply here, first of all, and then we'll jump to lessons that we might be able to apply elsewhere. What is it that you're trying to do specifically in this FEMA grant of over $1 million that was received to people there? What are you trying to come up with as an application of this data?
Stormwater management system. There is no record of the current system, and that's going to be studied with this FEMA money. There's an engineering firm that's under contract to do the design work, and we're playing a support role. But in addition, they want to put in a flood relief channel. So I have, here's the shots when James was down there. Notice the pooling water, and they picked a location to do a detailed study on. So there's two infrastructure improvements. One is a flood relief channel and an improved stormwater management system.
And all that costs a lot of money. We know that. That's going to be more than $1 million, but $1 million is a start. I imagine it's got to be more than $1 million for that.
The study's probably going to be $1 million. The flood relief channel is looking to be $1.5 million, and the new stormwater management system's in the $10 million range. But obviously they have to go through environmental assessments and very detailed design. So this is where James was talking about, and they did a study to put in a new stormwater system for a portion of the city that currently does not have one. And this was some evidence we also had available. This is real-time footage from the flood event. And we'll talk about the location in a moment. See the flooded truck there? We're going to go to another view. So there's where the flooded truck is, and this is where the study that they chose to work on.
Yeah, and you see that's right in a neighborhood, and if you just look at that, there's some mobile homes there, just some plain old houses. This is just your normal city street in Rainelle, right? And that truck was all the way up over the windowsill.
Absolutely, about 4 feet deep of water.
Dangerous.
And also, James, you can help out here. This is one of the tools they use. They downloaded LiDAR data, which is similar to radar data somewhat. And James, go ahead and pick up what all you did here.
Yeah, we using the LiDAR data, you can kind of see that we the map on the left and the right is the same data, and what we did was we just colored it to make a elevation heat map, if you will, where orange and yellow is the lowest elevation and blue is the highest. And so you kind of see where that truck was on what looks like Inlet 5, where the water is really low. And so one thing that we focused on was a detention pond in that area,
Mm-hmm.
and so to kind of capture some of the water, but also act as a flood mitigation tool in larger storm events. And the stormwater network we designed was able to withstand a 10-year storm, which is about what you would usually see in
Mhm.
stormwater systems. And the detention pond, we only used a small portion of the land available. You know, certainly we could look at different projects where we expand that out to the larger region. Because where you saw all those trailers, the way it was explained to me was that all those trailers were actually wiped out during the 2016 flood, and all that land was granted to the town. So we could definitely expand the trailer park to, or expand the detention pond to encompass that whole area.
And so these are the things, let me jump in here, James, real quick. So here you are now, and you are doing this as an undergraduate student, but these are the things that a civil engineer, someone now you are, is going to have to deal with if they go to work for a professional company, right? Only this is the university, this is Marshall helping out in this instance, but these are the kind of things that you're going to be doing out there in the real world now, is that right?
Yes.
That it seems like some pretty heavy lifting to me. You guys got your hands into something real here, didn't you?
Oh yeah, definitely. Marshall was, I think, really good at that, really preparing us for real world stuff, which we have done here.
I would say, Alex, what would you say about that?
I believe you hit the nail on the head. We were able to take a real life application and learn about it and study it and contribute to that. And I think it helps you learn better than just, book work sometimes. So.
Yeah, that's right. Dr. Begley, how about these guys? I mean, they're ready to get out there and do this on top of, to have this kind of work in your portfolio coming out of school. This is important stuff. This is helping real people here in our neighborhood, correct?
Oh, absolutely, I agree. And we got a great group of faculty here in the civil program, and some great facilities. And we've got a great partner right down the street, United States Army Corps of Engineers, who developed some of the tools. So what I've got on the screen now is some of Alex's work.
Mm-hmm.
It does show a detailed grid that he set up. Alex, you want to give us a little background on what you did to set up this mesh here?
Yes. So I took a bunch of digital elevation files, which is sort of like LiDAR, and combine those to directly correlate with Rainelle's terrain. So that is Rainelle, its terrain. And each square, as you can see, has a 50-foot by 50-foot area. And the computer software system calculates each of those tiny squares and combines that to show the simulation for the whole area. So my mesh is pretty much the whole county. We got 3 rivers and streams converging right in the town of Rainelle, and the software system computes those for us. It took probably 7 or 8 hours for it to compute this simulation of the 2016 event.
Mm-hmm. That is pretty impressive. That's a lot of data that you guys are working on right there. But then you can see where the choke point comes right there at the Horseshoe Bend. And as you mentioned, there's so many channels coming together here. And that, 7 inches of rain, 3 inches of rain would cause a problem, could cause a problem if it all came in too short a time period, correct?
Yes.
You're absolutely right. And it's a very common issue in Appalachia. We've got aging stormwater systems. We got terrain issues. Here's a live demonstration of the simulation he did. Start to see the water accumulating.
Mm-hmm.
And he set up a profile, and we can actually see the
jump. You can see how it went from almost 0 to about 4 feet right there.
It actually got deeper. Almost up to 8 feet.
Goodness. So now, is that considered now will this data then be used, let's say, by, I don't know, insurance companies or the government to say, okay, now that's the floodplain now? or is it lower? Because that's 100, or actually that's probably more like a 1,000-year flood, what we would call that. Is that now the record of the floodplain for someone who's trying to buy insurance there?
Well, that's a very heavily, discussed topic. The flood insurance rate maps. Firms do use these tools. And when I was going through the demo of the simulation, we were comparing the 100-year floodplain. So it is used by insurance companies. And in some cases, resources aren't available to send people to every town to get accurate data. So they've had to do the best they could with remote sensing, satellite data, aerial photography. In some cases, it's important for landowners to get their own measurements, and then they can essentially dispute if they have to. And the short story is you have to buy insurance if you're in the floodplain, or in some cases they won't give you insurance, but in some cases you have to hire licensed engineers or surveyors to go out and measure the elevation of your property, and then provide that as evidence that we are either in the floodplain or not.
And as far as this type of data goes, I know you've been working with officials in Greenbrier County. This is now going to be used, I would imagine, moving forward in emergency responses. Is that right? They're going to be able to look at this and say, hey, we know if we get this much rain, it can flood up this way. This is about where the floods would end up. Or this is about how much land we'd see flooded given this. Is that the kind of data that they're going to have access to now because of this study?
Oh, absolutely. The inundation mapping has been used for quite a while, actually. You know, Corps of Engineers is a great resource, and all the first responders, unfortunately, they have experience with flood issues in West Virginia. And just as an example, when Hurricane Florence was nearby, they put in a flood gauge in one of the creeks there to try to ascertain, you know, just how bad it could be from Florence. And thankfully, it fizzled out a little bit in our area. So all the stakeholders that you're mentioning are key players here. And in addition, we do have another student who just graduated who's working for the Army National Guard, who actually was part of the first responder team to Rainelle. And unfortunately, he's on active duty right now, pretty busy with everything, so he couldn't join us.
Dr. Begley, if I may add to that, I had an internship with the Army Corps of Engineers last summer through the winter, and I actually saw us, for a separate town, use simulations like these for kind of like an after the fact type of deal where all the government officials, local officials, they met. I was actually part of that meeting, and they took this data and kind of went through, they made like an emergency action plan from this data. So in the future, this can be used to, you know, set up something like that with Rainelle's town officials and government officials.
That's well done. Congratulations on that, to be a part of something that, you know, really impacts people. And so to kind of wind this down here, Dr. Begley, I'd like to ask, where do we go in the future with this particular data, this study? These young men are going to move on and do something else. Where are you taking this next?
Well, we're hopefully going to be a resource for the designs, for the solutions to help prevent flooding in this town in the future for this particular case. But our university really values community engagement projects. So we're always looking for other communities that our resources could be useful to. So we want this to be a continuous effort of support to assist our communities as they prepare for the challenges of climate change. Huntington's got a great plan already in place, very comprehensive plan. Marshall's contributing to part of that. We see green structures. I'm right next door to a green roof in this building. The soccer field's got green structures, retention ponds. We've got bio gardens on campus. So the solution is, first of all, it's a comprehensive problem. So consequently, we need a comprehensive solution. And it comes down to even private residences taking steps, rain barrels, collecting water in rain barrels, essentially new urban layouts that somewhat try to retain water and use it, repurpose it, as well as keeping it from, flooding the streets. And
let me just throw out one more question here to the guys. You guys are now in the field. And as I tell meteorologists who graduate and move out, we say, you know what, you're no longer students, you're colleagues. So I'll start with Alex. What are your plans, and how do you feel about getting into this field moving ahead?
I currently work for the United States Army Corps of Engineers in the hydraulics and hydrology section. I just accepted a position to become full-time, and I hope to take grad courses in the fall at Marshall University and continue my education kind of part-time in the evenings.
That's great. James?
I've just accepted a position with a company in Richmond, and I hope to continue to do more projects in Appalachia. It might not be in West Virginia, but Appalachia. And I do plan on furthering my education.
Well, congratulations. And Dr. Begley will give you the last word about these guys and your program.
Well, very proud of these two gentlemen and our other graduating seniors. Our state high school system are sending us some great students. They have great attitudes, and we're very fortunate to have them here, and we look forward to getting as many other students as we can here at Marshall. I think it's a good decision.
Absolutely, and I can vouch for it. I got 2 civil engineers from Marshall at my house, full disclosure, and they're going to be great. So we appreciate it. Thanks for working on fighting future flooding here for all the people in West Virginia, and in particular for Rainelle.
It's our pleasure.